What if I told you that Mercedes has found a way to turn on an extra half second? Only when it really matters. Because no, we are not talking about a normal improvement. We are talking about something that appears suddenly in Q2, that destroys Ferrari without prior warning, and that is not even seen on Sunday. The big question is it a brilliant trick within the regulations, or an advantage that Ferrari still doesn't even understand? Stay, because what Mercedes is doing in qualifying could completely change the balance of Formula One. What happened in China was not just another qualifying, it was the exact moment in which the entire paddock began to ask the same question. Where is Mercedes suddenly getting that time? Because up to that point the story seemed clear. Ferrari arrived with a solid car, competitive in curves, with good traction and with positive feelings from the start of the season. Even in the early stages of qualifying, everything was as expected. The differences were minimal, we were talking about a tenth, two at most, nothing that made us think about what was about to happen. But then Q2 arrives, and everything changes. Suddenly, without warning, Mercedes activates something different. The car stops behaving like it had been doing all weekend. An improvement appears that is not progressive, it is not natural. It is a leap. Half a second. Sometimes more. A difference too big to explain with track evolution or a perfect lap. And this is where the confusion begins within Ferrari. Because it's not just that Mercedes is faster, it's that it is faster at an extremely specific time. They don't dominate the entire weekend. They don't sweep long runs. They don't seem unreachable in race pace. But when it's time to put in a twist, they just disappear. This creates a very uncomfortable feeling in his rivals. Because when you try to analyze where you waste time, the data doesn't add up. Ferrari is strong in braking, it is competitive in cornering, it even seems superior in some sectors. But at the end of the lap, the stopwatch says something completely different. And that is the key to everything. The problem is not in a specific area of the circuit. It's not a curve, it's not a mistake, it's not bad execution. It's something much deeper. Mercedes has built a system that concentrates performance at very specific points of the lap, especially on long straights and corner exits, where power delivery makes the difference. While Ferrari maintains a constant, balanced behavior, Mercedes plays a completely different game. They don't seek to be the best at all times. They seek to be the best at the exact moment. And that changes absolutely everything. Because in Formula One, a tenth is fought, worked, and built with details. But half a second does not appear by chance. Half a second is a declaration of intent. And the most disturbing thing for Ferrari is that this phenomenon is not replicated on Sunday. In the race, the differences are reduced. The Ferrari looks competitive again. He can keep up, he can fight. But he is already starting from behind. And therein lies the real blow. Because Mercedes doesn't need to be better all weekend. It just needs to be better in qualifying to completely condition the race. And while Ferrari tries to understand what is happening, Mercedes has already made Saturdays its territory. The question now is not whether Ferrari can be faster. The question is whether it can understand what Mercedes is doing before it's too late. Now yes, this is where everything makes sense. Because understanding that Mercedes gains half a second in Q2 is just the surface. What is really important is how they do it and why Ferrari, even looking at the data, cannot easily replicate it. Mercedes has built something much more complex than a simple aggressive engine map. What they have is perfect synchronization between the power unit, the electrical deployment, and the behavior of the car at very specific points of the lap. It is not constant power, it is strategic power. First, the heart of it all, energy management. In today's Formula One, performance does not depend only on the thermal engine, but on how you use the hybrid part. And this is where Mercedes is making the difference. They have taken the system to the extreme, designing a loop where the energy is not distributed evenly, but rather accumulates aggressively in certain areas and is released explosively in others. Where does this occur? In key braking. Every time the driver brakes hard before a long straight, Mercedes is recovering more energy than anyone else. But it's not just about recovering more, it's doing it more efficiently, faster, and in a window where the rest is still stabilizing the car. This allows them to reach the acceleration point with a higher energy load. And here comes the blow. When the pilot presses the accelerator, that extra is not released progressively, it is released almost all at once. The car has a much more powerful corner exit, and as soon as it enters the straight, that advantage is converted into top speed. And in Formula One, straight line speed not only adds, it multiplies. Therefore, although in the curves Ferrari may seem more solid, more stable, even faster, all that work is lost in the following meters. Mercedes turns every corner exit into an opportunity to do damage. Now this has a price. This system works within an extremely limited window. Temperatures, battery charging, thermal engine management. Everything has to be perfectly aligned. Something goes wrong, performance drops. That's why they don't use it all the time. That's why it appears in Q2 and Q3, when it really matters. It is literally a classification mode disguised within the current regulations. Ferrari, on the other hand, is playing something completely different. His approach is much more balanced. They don't force energy recovery as much, they don't drain the battery as aggressively, they don't push the engine to that very specific limit. Because they are thinking about the race, about degradation, about reliability, about not compromising on Sunday. And therein lies the clash of philosophies. Mercedes accepts the risk to win on Saturday. Ferrari protects the team to perform on Sunday. But in modern Formula One, coming out in front changes everything. And there is another even finer detail, even more difficult to copy. It's not just energy, it's timing. The exact moment in which that power is released is perfectly calculated. It does not always occur at the same point on the circuit, but in places where the time gained is greater according to telemetry. It is a millimetric optimization of each sector. Therefore, when Ferrari analyzes the data, it does not find a single clear reason. There is no curve where they lose everything. There is no obvious sector. It is a sum of perfectly placed micro-advantages. And that is the most dangerous of all. Because copying a piece is easy. Copying a complete philosophy of car use, that can take months. So right now, Mercedes not only has an advantage, it has a concept. And Ferrari is trying to understand it while it is already competing against it. The big question that now arises is inevitable. To what extent can Mercedes continue to exploit this system without paying the price in the race? And how much time does Ferrari need to react? And this is where all this stops being just a technical curiosity and becomes a real problem for Ferrari and for the championship. Because what Mercedes has done not only gives them an advantage in qualifying, it gives them control over the entire weekend. Starting half a second ahead is not just a pole position. It's clean air. It's avoiding traffic. It is managing the tires better. It is imposing the pace from the first lap. And in today's Formula One, where overtaking is increasingly complicated, that is practically half a race won before the traffic light goes out. Ferrari is experiencing it firsthand. They have a car that works. A competitive car. A car that, at race pace, can look down on Mercedes. But they constantly find themselves in the same situation. They start behind. And that changes everything. Because when you leave behind, your strategy is no longer your own. You start to react. Dirty air conditions you. It forces you to force tires. It pushes you to take risks that you wouldn't take if you were ahead. And little by little, that car that was competitive stops looking like it. Therein lies the true impact of Mercedes' trick. It's not just a quick lap. It's about how that lap redefines the entire race. And meanwhile, Mercedes plays with a psychological advantage. Because when a team knows that it has that extra saved for qualifying, everything changes in the way it works on the weekend. They can hide rhythm, they cannot show cards in free play, they can even appear vulnerable, knowing that at the key moment they are going to hit. Ferrari, on the other hand, lives in uncertainty. They know they are close, but they don't know where the real difference is. And that is the most dangerous thing in Formula One, not understanding why you lose. Because if you don't understand the problem, you can't solve it. And this is where we reach the critical point of this story. Ferrari has two paths. The first, remain faithful to their philosophy, continue betting on a balanced car, strong in the race, hoping that at some point the circumstances, strategy, degradation, errors will allow them to compensate for that disadvantage on Saturday. The second, try to replicate what Mercedes is doing. But that path is much riskier, because it involves pushing the power unit to a more aggressive limit, changing the way they manage energy, changing the entire approach of the car, and all of that with the risk of compromising reliability or race performance. It is literally changing the identity of the car mid-season. And while Ferrari hesitates, Mercedes continues to perfect the system, because this is not something static. It is not a trick that is discovered and that's it. It is a foundation on which they can continue to build, fine-tuning every detail, expanding that advantage. That's why the final question is not just technical, it's strategic. Should Ferrari break its philosophy to chase Mercedes in qualifying? Or trust that its stronger approach will give them the advantage in the long term? Because if Mercedes continues to come out ahead, they won't need to be the fastest car. They're just going to need to be fast enough. And that, in Formula One, is usually enough to win championships. And in the end, It all comes down to an idea that completely changes the way we understand this duel between Mercedes and Ferrari. We're not just seeing one team faster than another, we're seeing a team that has a better understanding of when to be faster. Mercedes hasn't built the perfect car. He does not master all areas. It doesn't sweep every session. But he has found a way to concentrate all his performance on the exact moment that defines the weekend, qualifying. And that changes everything. Because while Ferrari continues to search for that ideal balance between Saturday and Sunday, Mercedes has already made a clear decision. Sacrifice whatever is necessary to secure the starting position. And in today's Formula One, that's practically dictating the race before it starts. The problem for Ferrari is not just the half-second difference. It's not fully understanding where it comes from. It's seeing that the car works, that the pace is there, that they can compete, but still always stay one step behind when it really matters. And in this sport, that feeling is the most dangerous of all. Because while you are looking for answers, your rival continues to advance. And this is where this story gets even more interesting. Because if Ferrari decides to react, it will not be with a simple improvement. It will be with a change in philosophy, with a risk, with the possibility of breaking what is already working in the race to try to recover what is being lost on Saturday. And that decision can define the entire season. So the next time you see a qualifying and Mercedes pulls that half a second out of nowhere, remember this. It's not magic. It's not a coincidence. It's a choice. The choice to understand that in modern Formula One, the most complete car does not win. The one who appears at the perfect moment wins. And now the final question is inevitable. Will Ferrari be able to adapt in time? Or has Mercedes already found the key to controlling the championship since Saturday? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.